I'm going to plant a new asparagus bed. Now I think perennial vegetables are fabulous because they are so much easier than annual veg. And asparagus is such a tasty veg. And as long as you've got weed-free soil, you don't want any perennial weeds in the bed, then really they are really very, very low maintenance. Now I've got an asparagus crown here, which a friend who grows them commercially, she's just given me 10 spare ones. And you can actually see what the crowns look like. And you can see they've got tiny little fresh roots coming out on them. So she dug them up this morning, and you can actually see those tiny little root hairs, and they're the ones that are really important. The variety here is Gijnlim. It's an F1 variety, and I'm going to get them in while I'm chatting because I want to get them in this afternoon quickly. You can start buying asparagus crowns really from the end of March through to the beginning of May. I've got these a little bit early. They are very fresh, but if you get them in there a little bit dry, I would just soak the crowns in just slightly tepid water for a few hours before you plant them so that those roots are really hydrated. And Gijnlim is a good variety because it's F1, as I said, and it's all male. Now, the reason you like an all male variety, or I like an all male variety, is because they don't produce the berries. So the female varieties produce the berries, which takes the energy from the crown, and so it doesn't put so much energy into the actual production of the spears, which is what you want. The other thing with a female is that it seeds, because it produces the berries, they then seed into the bed, and so therefore you get lots of seedlings coming up, and those will be female, they'll be whatever. They won't be as good as the F1 original, more than likely, and so they're just in crowding out all your lovely plants. Now, they do actually have fatter spears, the females, but they don't produce so many of them. So to my mind, it's a no-brainer to go for an all-male F1, and Gijnlim is just one of many, many varieties that you can get. So I'm digging this trench, and ideally I want the top of those little shoots to be about 50 mil below the surface. So I'm going to lie them along the trench, nose to tail. Now, in the old books, they used to tell you to actually spread out the roots, but that they've now found is rubbish. So I'm just going to put them in like this, nose to tail, so the shoot is the top of that little nose. You see, there it is, there's the shoot, and that is about 40 centimetres from that one, and I want it about 50 mil below the top of the soil. So I'm just putting a little bit of compost around those roots. I mean, they say plant them on the ridge, but again, commercially, they certainly don't do that, and they grow very well. And I've got 3, and I'm hoping I'll get 4 and 5 in this row, and then I'll do the other row on the other side. Now, this is a much smaller crown, but you see there's its little shoot. So I'm going to put it down like that. I'm just going to put a bit of soil around it. And then I hopefully will I squeeze one more in? Might just squeeze one more in there. They want reasonably fertile soil. This is pretty fertile. As you can see, I've got this digestate mulch, which I put on it, I don't know, a month or 2 ago. And so it's a fairly nice soil anyway. There's its shoot, so it's just going like that. And they will spread, these will spread obviously out and around the crowns. They get bigger and bigger and bigger. Lovely. So we've got 5 there. And so that, yeah, I was going to say they like a sunny site. You can cope with a little bit of shade. Generally sort of fairly neutral. You don't want to go much more acid than something like 6.5. I mean, I know commercial growers who grow them on pH 8, which is what I am. So that is pretty alkaline. So this nose, and once I've covered them in, I'm going to give them a jolly good soaking, because obviously they've been out of the ground now for, I don't know, a few hours, and so that would be nice. I don't want to tread too firmly down on them. I want them to get the air out around them a bit. Push them like that. And then what I'll do is I won't pick them this year when the shoots come, and the shoots will start coming up sort of at the end of April, and I won't pick them this year. I won't pick them next year. I'll just let the shoots go. And then in the following year, I'll give them a light picking. And I'll pick them probably for 4 weeks from when they start coming in April through for 4 weeks. And then the following year, you can start having your asparagus parties and things. You can pick a lot more, and you can probably pick them for 6 weeks then, and later on in subsequent years for 8 weeks. But if you pick them too hard, you will obviously exhaust the crown, so that's a fairly crucial point. And I will just mulch up every year so that I don't have any annual weeds, and I'll mulch also to provide more nutrient to rot down and feed the crowns. And then I'm going to do my second row, and that will be about 40 centimetres apart. And obviously, if I've got a plant there, instead of putting a plant next to it there, I'll slightly stagger it, so you have a staggered row. And you always do that when you plant plants, whether it's broad beans or whatever. I like to stagger the plants in the 2 different rows, because then they don't compete so much. They get more light, more moisture and more food. And that's the same whether you're planting an avenue. In fact, avenues of trees are often not planted in pairs all the way down. They are often, if you look closely, they are staggered, and that's for exactly the same reason. So there we are. There's my new, exciting new asparagus bed. I'll water it now if we have dry periods during the spring. Until they're really well established, I'll keep an eye on them. And I really look forward to eating them. And when I cook them, I know you can get these special asparagus pots that you boil them in with a little bit of water in the bottom, but I actually much prefer just roasting them in the oven in a bit of butter and salt and pepper. And I think that way you don't boil the nutrients out of them, and they taste way, way better.